To now, first sentencing in the Mueller probe. The impeachment counsel now has a legal scalp. A Dutch lawyer by the name of Alex van der Zwaan. He was sentenced to 30 days in prison and fined $20,000. Van der Zwaan pleaded guilty to lying to federal investigators about his contacts with Trump campaign official Rick Gates. So, congratulations, Mr. Mueller. Another process crime. No Russian collusion, yet the investigation continues to steamroll over people's lives. And now, there's a memo written by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, which proves the point that the Mueller probe, in some instances, has nothing to do with its foundational charter, which is Russia interference in the 2016 election. Joining me now from Southern California, prosecutorial attorney and legal analyst, Wendy Patrick. Wendy, when I talk about process crimes, we're also talking about, I think, what you might call a collateral crime. And that is, Mueller comes in here and he's investigating Russian collusion or Russian interference in the 2016 election, and he finds this attorney, van der Zwaan, and he asks him some questions, and he checks some facts, and apparently the facts didn't add up to the answers to the questions, and so this guy ends up pleading guilty to lying. Okay, but that's not the original charter here.
Well, that, Graham, is something we keep coming back to collectively because that's always the complaint. The complaint is that, wait a minute, this is supposed to be about investigating Trump's campaign's ties to Russia in surrounding the election. The problem that keeps being brought up in defense is the fact that the charge that was given to Mueller was if he finds, and I'm going to sort of paraphrase it and simplify it, if doing that, he finds evidence that leads him to other crimes, he is able to charge those and pursue those as well. That's what he's been doing. And I know we wonder, is he saving the best for last? Maybe there actually is something that implicates Trump or one of his advisors or somebody in his administration or his campaign. We haven't seen that.
Well, but van der Zwaan says, in his defense, and I don't know the guy, and I don't even know much about his personal case, but he says his life has been ruined. Now that, to me, is a bit of and maybe he's being melodramatic, but when you start looking at the totality of the evidence, we know that General Mike Flynn has to sell his assets, has to sell his house, because he's been effectively financially ruined. Is that really what a special prosecutor should be doing here? Ruining these people? I don't even know this guy's an American citizen. But still, is that what this is all about?
Graham, the reason that is such an important question is this. Should it be what it is all about? It depends on who it is that is charged. We often say the punishment should fit the crime. But actually, the punishment should fit the criminal. What I mean by that is the purposes of sentencing are threefold. You're looking at, number one, it's got to be punishment. Number two, it's got to be deterrence. And number three, rehabilitation. So if you have different people that are charged with crimes, for example, some of them are going to be deterred certainly by heavy sentences. But white-collar criminals, just the fact that you've been charged and convicted is enough to ruin your life. As you point out, we've already seen that.
So what about this sentence? What about in this case?
Same thing.
He got 30 days and $20,000.
That's right. 30 days doesn't faze a lot of people. They think, oh, it's a slap on the wrist. But to somebody in his position, it's life-changing, both financially and reputationally. Who's going to hire him? Where are these people going to work again? So it is a much more significant impact than we think. Just the conviction alone, even if he never saw the inside of a jail cell.
Okay, the memo. I have to go to that. Number one, there's two things on this. Number one is that it appears to me that this thing was leaked. Here we are with another leak. And number two, I think it really damns Rosenstein and Mueller. I'm going to go to number two in a second, but first, it seems as though the Mueller investigators, and maybe Robert Mueller himself, is trying to shape public opinion with some of these leaks. And so this gets out, and kind of a defense of going after Paul Manafort. Would you quantify it that way?
That's exactly what it was, because Manafort's filing a motion to dismiss, and he's claiming two things. He's challenging appointment and jurisdiction. In other words, Mueller shouldn't have been appointed, and even if he should have been, this is beyond the scope. And this answer basically says yes and no. In other words, yes, he should have been appointed, and no, this is not beyond the scope, given, again, the charge anything you find in connection with your original investigation. And that's what this is. It was, remember, accompanied by a legal, I'll call it the brief that wasn't. It was 53 pages. I read all of them. But it's really, they're looking at all the different facts and circumstances and authority that goes to show why these charges are proper.
Okay, so Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, writes a memo to Mueller that allows him to go beyond the scope, to go beyond the original scope of the original charter here. And here it is in part. Investigate allegations that Manafort committed a crime or crimes by colluding with Russian government officials to interfere with the 2016 election. That's fine. As well as crimes arising out of payments he received from the Ukrainian government before and during the tenure of President Viktor Yanukovych. Okay, so to me, this is Rod Rosenstein removing his Deputy Attorney General hat and putting on the Attorney General's hat. This is not his domain. He doesn't have the authority under the original charter. This has nothing to do with Russian meddling in our election. And oh, by the way, the time frame they're talking about here in the Ukraine is between 2005 and 2014, well before Donald Trump even declared his presidency. How do you make sense of this?
Well, you make the nexus as follows. You make the nexus by saying that surely Mueller was investigating exactly what was the core of the original charge, and in the process, he stumbled upon information that he simply had to pursue because it was evidence of a crime. So it's that nexus that everybody is arguing about. And that's why that brief was 53 pages, is that is the connection that obviously would have to be made before you bring charges like this.
But do you believe that Rosenstein has the authority to do this? Well, to expand the mandate from beyond the election?
But he would argue it's not expanding the mandate. It's back to that collateral word that you used earlier. That is his argument, that it's not an expansion. It's basically an enforcement of the original mandate because it included, and it was worded very vaguely. That's always been a bone of contention.
Okay,
that vague wording allowed them to do that.
But if you were defending Manafort, wouldn't you use this as evidence of, wait a minute, they're trying to go after my client, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to squeeze the heck out of him to testify against President Trump or whoever, right?
Yes, I used to be a criminal defense attorney, and absolutely yes, and that's exactly what he's doing. And it's interesting that Manafort is the only one thus far who's been charged that is vehemently fighting the charges.
Right. It's a search and destroy mission, in my opinion, and it's not predicated on a violation of a statute. It's predicated on go find whatever you want based on whatever Rod Rosenstein wants. Wendy, out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.